OK, UN Security Council has voted to extend humanitarian aid deliveries to millions of Syrians who rely on it to survive. The Council backed a proposal that would use only one authorised crossing point for aid supplies into the country, that being on the Turkey-Syria border. Aid agencies are warning that the decision to shut down all other access routes will intensify the suffering of thousands of displaced Syrians and cost lives.
The result of the voting is as follows: 12 votes in favour, no votes against, and 3 abstentions. The resolution submitted by Belgium and Germany is adopted.
A resolution from the United Nations Security Council to resume aid deliveries to war-torn Syria, one day after the program had expired. But it gave way to Russia's unyielding demands. Of the 2 functioning ones, only one border crossing from Turkey will remain open for the next 12 months. A move that will cut a lifeline, as Western countries describe it, for Syrians in the country's northwest. Western countries had even pushed to reopen a border crossing from Iraq.
To be clear, today's resolution leaves us bitterly disappointed at the loss of Baba Salam and al-Arabiya border crossings. The Syrians themselves, if they had a voice, would tell you that the loss of those crossings is unacceptable and risk the health and welfare of millions of their fellow Syrians.
How those people who gave the instructions to cut off the aid of 500,000 children, if they are ready to look into the mirror tomorrow.
The Security Council was in a deadlock. The majority of members argued that 2 crossing points were essential, especially during the coronavirus pandemic. But the veto powers, Russia and China, argued that the northwest of Syria can be reached from within the country.
We could have arrived to this result much earlier. And one most important border crossing to Idlib is what Russia was proposing since the very beginning.
Initially, the UN aid mission had included access to Syria from Jordan and Iraq. Those crossing points were cut in January, also due to Russia and China.
Well, DW correspondent Basil Aridi is in Beirut and has more on that story for us. Basil, it's clearly the point of contention. So why did Russia and China only want this one border crossing?
Anthony, it seems that the Russians are pushing forward, or the Russian intentions in the future, to pass these humanitarian aid through the Syrian government only. According to some sources close to the Russian position, told me this morning that the Russians prefer to move or to pass these humanitarian aid via the Turkish border rather than the Iraqi or Jordanian borders as it used to be, because these supplies, these aid will pass through areas controlled by U.S. Army or its allies at least. While in Turkey, even it's a NATO member, but at least the Russian and the Turkish, they have good position and good conversation and good relations between each other. While at the same time, according to these sources, according to previous experiences, some of these aids, mainly in Aleppo, they were controlled and stocked by some rebels and refused to deliver to the civilians. For Turkey, on the second hand, for Turkey, this is quite its benefits in Syria, because it will keep Turkey in control over Idlib and all its rebels in that area.
So, Basil, in the end, the nations did in fact vote to extend aid to the Syrian people. So why is the German UN ambassador and others so disappointed about this compromise?
Anthony, we can talk here about 2 main reasons. First of all, Germany and Belgium were seeking to have 2 border crossings, one via Turkish borders, of course, one to Idlib and the second to Aleppo. The compromise with the Security Council members, due to the Russian vetoes, reached for one border crossing to Idlib directly for 1 year instead of 6 months. The second reason is that Germany and Belgium fear that some of these supplies will not reach all the civilians in Idlib, which they are in need to.
So what else will this decision mean for the people on the ground?
The situation on the ground, it's so dramatic, we can say, according to opposition sources. I'm talking about the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights told me this morning that one border crossing will not be sufficient, or will not be enough to supply 3 million people in Idlib, especially that the medical situation after the announcement of the first COVID-19 case in Idlib, and the logistical and social circumstances in Idlib, it's so dramatic. So the fear that these supply through one border crossing will not be sufficient to these 3 million people. And on the other hand, the observatory asked, who will control these borders? Is it Turkey or under the UN control?
Bassel Al-Aridi in Beirut, thank you very much.
Thank you.